Every home buyer is a little bit different, and I can't think of any situations where two buyers have had the exact same questions, but there are some questions that pretty much every buyer has. Today, I'm going to go through three of the most common questions that you're probably wondering about if you're considering getting into the real estate market for the first time in Ottawa, or if it's just been a little while since you've bought or sold a property. Question number one is, do I need a pre-approval? And the answer to that question is technically no, you don't need a pre-approval before you start going to look at houses. For instance, you can go to open houses before you have any sort of pre-approval in place. And realistically, if you call a real estate agent, particularly a newer real estate agent, they will probably go and take you to see properties before you have your pre-approval in place. But with that being said, you should probably get it done before you start looking seriously at houses, and there's a few reasons for that. The first one is that it's going to lock in the rate for you. Now, we're in an environment right now in August of 2025 where it looks more likely that the rates are going to go down than they're going to go up, but that's not always the case, and it can turn around pretty quickly. The nice thing about getting your mortgage pre-approval done and in place is that it locks in the mortgage rate for you. So if rates go up between when you lock in your mortgage and when you actually purchase the property, you're going to be guaranteed that lower rate. And the nice thing about it too is you're also protected if rates go in the other direction, because the mortgage broker or bank that gave you the pre-approval knows that if they don't honor the lower rate, that you're probably just going to go somewhere else and get another pre-approval. So there's really no losing for locking in that pre-approval right away. The second reason to lock in your pre-approval before you start looking seriously at properties is that you know exactly what price range you can look in if you get the pre-approval done. I can't tell you how many times I've had people who have started looking at houses, we've met, I've told them to go get a pre-approval, and then they realize that their pre-approval amount is much lower than they expected. And this is really common because rates were so low in the early 2020s during the pandemic years. Oftentimes, the last time somebody got a pre-approval done was in that period, and now they're coming back to the market after a few years. And it can be a really nasty surprise if they qualified for, $700,000 when the rates were super low in 2021, but now they only qualify for 600,000 or something in the 500s. And it's a really tough adjustment to make if you've started to go do research on your own, maybe gone to a few open houses or showings in the price range that you think you're at, but really you're in a lower price range. It's a really difficult mental adjustment to make back to looking at properties that are in your realistic price range. And obviously the ones that are worth $575 are not going to look as good as the $700,000 ones. So it's really difficult in that way. The second really common question that I get, and it's super understandable that people ask it, but there's really no good answer, is now a good time for me to buy a property? And the answer is it depends a lot on your individual situation, but I find when people are asking this question, what they're really asking is, what's the market going to do after I buy this house? They want to avoid buying a house and then having the price of their house go down sharply right away. And there's really nothing we can do to predict that. We can look at trends, we can look at historically what has happened with home values in Ottawa, but a lot of the times the things like the pandemic, for example, that make the market take a turn in a really positive or really negative direction are things that nobody can really see coming. So with that in mind, the advice I normally give people who ask this question is decide whether or not you can afford a mortgage, whether or not it makes sense and like the monthly payments are something that you're comfortable with. And look at your life. Like, is now a good time for you to get more space? Are you planning on expanding your family? Do you have a dog that needs a fenced backyard? Do you want a private garage? Are you tired of living downtown? All of these things are the main questions you need to be asking yourself. So if you can afford it, if you're in a stable job and you're comfortable with the monthly payments, and it's a good time in your life to make that lifestyle change, then I would say yes, it is a good time to buy. But don't try and time the market and let that dictate when you're going to buy or when you're going to sell, because a lot of the times it's just a coin toss and nobody really knows. The third common question I get asked a lot these days, and I think this is, again, a relic of the early pandemic years, is can I get a home inspection when I buy my property? And the reason this question is common is because during those pandemic years when there was crazy competition, interest rates were super low, and everybody was looking to buy a house, everyone had that fear of missing out. A lot of the times, the only way to get your offer accepted and to be competitive was to go in with no conditions. So no financing condition and no home inspection condition. So you were really buying kind of blind. You would do a showing or two and decide based off that whether or not you were going to move forward on an offer for the property. And it was an offer that you couldn't get out of if it was accepted. Fortunately, in 2025, this is no longer the case. There are some cases where offers will still go in with no conditions, but these are definitely the exception. And especially if you're a first-time buyer, I would highly, highly recommend that you get a home inspection, and we're in a market now where you can do it. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, please consider liking and subscribing so the video finds its way to more people just like yourself. And if you have any questions that are specific to your situation that perhaps I didn't cover here, always feel free to shoot me a text or a DM or an email. I'd be happy to get back to you and have a conversation about what it is that you're looking for. Thanks so much. Have a great day.